The notion of an asymmetric attack on Italy during the 1990s can be interpreted as a prolonged process of indirect pressure, destabilization, and forced transformation that unfolded without the characteristics of a conventional military conflict, instead exploiting political fragility, economic exposure, institutional weakness, and social fragmentation. With the end of the Cold War, Italy suddenly lost the geopolitical framework that had guaranteed stability for decades. The bipolar balance had frozen internal contradictions and ensured the survival of a political system that, although inefficient and corrupt, was functional within that global order. When that structure collapsed, Italy entered the 1990s exposed and unprotected, facing globalization, financial liberalization, and a redefinition of power relations in which economic and informational instruments became more decisive than military ones. In this context, asymmetric pressure did not require an identifiable external enemy, but rather operated through a convergence of forces capable of amplifying internal vulnerabilities. One of the most dramatic manifestations of this dynamic was the escalation of organized crime violence between 1992 and 1993. The assassinations of magistrates Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino, followed by a series of bombings in Florence, Milan, and Rome, represented a direct challenge to state authority through asymmetric means. These acts were not random crimes, but calculated operations aimed at terrorizing society, undermining confidence in institutions, and signaling that the state could be struck at its symbolic and cultural core. Criminal organizations used limited resources to generate disproportionate psychological and political effects, attempting to influence legislation, judicial action, and political negotiations through fear rather than force. At the same time, the Mani Pulite investigations exposed a systemic network of corruption that involved political parties, public administration, and major economic actors. While the judicial action was necessary to restore legality, its cumulative impact led to the rapid collapse of the First Republic. Traditional parties disintegrated, long-standing leadership structures vanished, and the institutional continuity of the state was abruptly interrupted. This sudden loss of legitimacy created a vacuum that weakened Italy precisely when it was under intense internal and external pressure. In an asymmetric framework, the erosion of political trust acts as a strategic multiplier because a state that no longer commands credibility becomes far more vulnerable to indirect coercion. Economic and financial mechanisms played a central role in this process. The speculative attack on the lira in 1992 and Italy's forced exit from the European exchange rate mechanism demonstrated how financial markets could function as tools of asymmetric pressure. Without the use of military force, Italy was compelled to adopt severe austerity measures, privatizations, and structural reforms, reshaping its economic model under emergency conditions. These events deeply affected public perception, reinforcing the idea that national sovereignty was constrained by invisible and unaccountable forces operating through global capital flows. Italy's high public debt, structural inefficiencies, and dependence on external financing made it particularly exposed to this form of pressure, which achieved strategic results that traditional warfare could not. Italy's geopolitical position further amplified these vulnerabilities. The Balkan Wars, instability in the Mediterranean, and the early phases of migration from Eastern Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East placed additional stress on administrative capacity and social cohesion. Although migration flows were still limited compared to later decades, Italy was unprepared institutionally and culturally, and these dynamics contributed to insecurity, political polarization, and social tension. Another crucial dimension of the asymmetric attack was informational and cultural. The expansion of private television, the growing concentration of media power, and the rise of scandal-driven journalism transformed public discourse into a continuous battlefield of delegitimization. Political consensus became fragile and volatile, shaped by media narratives that emphasized crisis, corruption, and conflict, eroding long-term trust in institutions.
Even before the full emergence of the digital age, information functioned as a strategic weapon capable of influencing perceptions, destabilizing governments, and accelerating political turnover. Taken together, these elements formed a cumulative and convergent process rather than a single coordinated conspiracy. Criminal violence weakened the rule of law, judicial upheaval dismantled political continuity, financial pressure constrained economic sovereignty, social transformation strained cohesion, and media dynamics amplified instability. The asymmetric attack on Italy in the 1990s did not aim to destroy the state outright, but at forcing a rapid and profound transformation under constant stress, making Italy one of the earliest examples of how modern states can be reshaped and destabilized through indirect, hybrid means operating below the threshold of open war.